Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Diya TV Spotlight. I'm Carrie Lane, and today I'm talking with the director and lead actors of the new Regency-era romantic comedy, Mr. Malcolm's List.
Love cannot be planned so carefully. It will stir things up a bit. That is part of its charm.
Hi, Carrie Lane with Diya TV. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, Freida, what made you want to be part of this film? What drew you in? Was it the character, the script, director?
A combination of all of it. I was presented the script by Laura Lewis, who's one of the producers on this film, a very dear friend of mine. And she told me that the vision that Emma Holly-Jones had, our director, had for this film was inspired by Hamilton. Now, I was a huge fan of Hamilton. I love what it did for our entertainment industry and how it made us see actors and talent and storytelling in general and representation. And so that was immediately a draw. And then, of course, I've always fantasized, about being in a romantic comedy, a romantic period drama, I would rather say. And this was an opportunity that just literally came right and fell into my lap. So, of course, I grabbed it with both hands and went all guns blazing to make it come to life.
I never expected in my career to get the opportunity to play a leading role in a romantic period comedy. I hadn't seen it done before, and that limited my imagination for what is possible in my career. So I was super blessed and grateful that Tamara Notcutt, our casting director, and our director, Emma Holly-Jones, expanded my own imagination of what was possible. And once they showed me a peek of what the other side of the curtain looks like, I wanted to throw that door right open. And I hope we have done with this film.
It seems to be a favorite pastime of the season. Ladies are dropping their purses, their gloves, even themselves at my feet with monotonous regularity.
And Freida, you mentioned it a little bit, but what does it mean to be part of that kind of representation?
In many ways, it feels normal. And it feels like there is no need to justify why we're in this film, because people of color existed in England during that time. And really, if this is a piece of fiction, then as Sope reminded me, what Emma always said was she wanted to represent a London then with the London that is now, what it looks like now. And so for me, it just in many ways felt really normal. I'm still wondering if at any point in time, did it really feel normal or did it ever jar me? And I don't think it ever did. So I kind of feel like we are in so many ways, because of the way I imagined what our industry will look like and what these stories will look like, I feel like my imagination really earned all of our presence in this film, and that we all deserve to be part of this film.
Was there any scene in particular that was memorable or challenging for you?
In terms of memorable, I've got really fond memories about most of the scenes that we shot, especially the scenes where we're all together in the same space, be that the croquet scene or the shoot sequence or the horse auction.
I love the masquerade ball.
The mask ball is obviously like the centrifugal point of the film, and it took us a couple of days to shoot, but watching it back, it was definitely worth all the effort that was put into it.
Very happy you're here.
Very happy to be here.
So it's really interesting that you started out with a short film and then went into a full feature for Mr. Malcolm's List. Can you walk us through when you first discovered the book and how it evolved from a short into a feature?
It's actually the other way around, which is, it's our story is the most backward story of how I think a film comes to life. So Suzanne wrote a self-published novel, I think about 20 years ago now. And I didn't know about the book. I'd never heard of it, but she adapted her book and sent it to a Hollywood screenwriting service called The Blacklist. It was really highly rated on, their website, and they turned it into a table read, which they were doing scripts, reading scripts on a podcast. So weirdly, the first place I heard about Mr. Malcolm's List was driving my car, listening to a podcast. And obviously that's an incredible place to find a piece of material because your imagination runs wild. And I very much was like, I want this to be my first film, and sort of set myself to the task of how we start that process. We brought on producers, Laura Rister and Laura Lewis, and one of the things the producer said to me as a first-timer is, I think we're gonna need to make some sort of proof of concept here. So the short film actually was created as a tool to get the feature film made.
Nice. It's quite the journey. And Regency period stories are very popular. What do you think draws people into them?
Hopeless romanticism. I think there's something wonderful about the rom-com that we haven't seen in a long time. And one of the things that drew me so much to this material was the fact it sort of felt like a 90s rom-com, you know? And I think it's quite hard to emulate what those films did because of the romantic stakes. You know, I think, look, when we all sit down to watch a piece of romantic cinema, we all sort of know the ending, let's be clear, you know? But the trick is to create the will they, won't they, and take them on the journey, even though we sort of know where we're gonna land. And I think the thing about Malcolm's that struck me was there's romantic stakes here. There's no technology, there's no electricity, there's no phones, there's just carrier pigeons and carriages and horses. So I felt like it was almost a cheap way of, you know, creating that romantic stakes that I missed so much from, you know, the 90s sort of rom-coms I grew up absolutely adoring.
You're being blinded by his intelligent conversation and devastatingly handsome good looks. What?
So now let's talk about casting. Freida and Sope are not what you would typically see in a period film, but obviously we have seen that done successfully with Bridgerton and now Mr. Malcolm's List. How deliberate do you think that is? And as a director, how did you approach that?
It was extraordinarily deliberate. The same week I heard the podcast, I saw Hamilton. And literally, when I watched that show, I think it sort of really started an inner dialogue for me about, as an artist, as a filmmaker, you know, how we choose to present any story, whether it's present, whether it's past, whether it's future, and specifically the fact that there is an entire genre of films and television shows that have been made that has been closed off to a number of types of people. And I then started to really ask myself the question, you know, what did England actually look like in 1818? And the truth is, it was a lot more diverse than any movie, TV show has ever painted it to be. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm an expert in history and that we, you know all the ins and outs, but there was enough information within 2 minutes of Googling this stuff to be like, you know what? I can do this film this way, and not only can I do it just as a beautiful rom-com in a fantasy world, there is also a lot of truth embedded into how we designed the film, how we looked at the film, and once we put these actors in their places, there is a lot of art and a lot of material out there that, you know, actually nods to a much richer society than I think films have previously shown us.
And that was director Emma Hawley-Jones and actors Freida Pinto and Sope Dirisu of Mr. Malcolm's List, which comes to theaters on Friday, July 1st. Thank you so much for watching this special edition of Diya TV Spotlight. I'm Carrie Lane with Diya TV.